Her story deals with a subculture of heavy metal music that some feel is sending a dangerous message to your kids.
The forces of evil on the dark side of devil right.
And I want to talk tonight about the devil and demons and witches and wizards.
And we just mix it up with hardcore and aggression and come out with something we think's an original sound.
Loud, fast, heavy, you know.
Well, what do you got?
What do you got?
Welcome back to another episode of the Riff Worship podcast. Joined with me, as always, is 1/3 of our co-host, Sugar Grove's own IC champ, Austin Paulson. How are you, bud?
I'm great. How are you, bud?
Bald and beautiful as ever.
Always.
So fantastic. Today, we're joined with a couple special guests. We are joined by two members of the band Laceration, who have just released one of my favorite records of this year. Their sophomore release, Erode, out through $20 spin. They have an upcoming show at the Phoenix Theater in Petaluma, California on October 18th. This will be the kickoff date of the Mosh Destruction Tour featuring Ghoul, Haggis, False Flag. Luke, Donnie, how you guys doing?
Fucking good, man. Just braving some October heat here in the North Bay.
Yeah,
Cooking.
so awful it seems.
Yeah, it's not bad now. I mean, we're not in the it's nice now.
Right.
I gotcha.
It's been hot.
Well, the record's out. It's been out for a little while now. How's it feel? How's it been going?
Good. Yeah, it's been pretty great. We just did that tour and we had a lot of great responses from that. A lot of merch sales on that and a lot of good words. You know.
Yeah. It was fun, man. Yeah, nothing negative to say about the tour. I mean, every show was super fun. Went out with our buds in the band Molten, Killer Death Thrash from San Francisco, and like those guys, class act dudes, pros, like, and yeah, it was sick, man. Every show ripped. It was a good time.
And then that release show, kind of having some locals as well. Hematoxin, that fucking record, When Time Becomes Loss, so incredible, sick. Awesome. I would imagine it'd be kind of a great thing to have like some buddies on and just kind of celebrate this release as well.
Yeah, that was the idea, man. Like we curated that bill and it was definitely intentional. Those guys rule. And like, yeah, they're coming off a really great release. So happy to have had them on that release show with us. And yeah, that was insane. That was an insane show.
I was curious, with this record, I think just some of the research we did heading into the interview, I had seen maybe, murmurs of this record being written in 2022. Potentially you had some of these ideas in your back pocket before then. What was the process kind of leading up to Erode? Like how long had you been working on it? How far did these ideas stretch back? Or did you start with the fresh slate?
Well, we kind of, Karst Reality, we wrote that song back, I think in 2022.
Yeah.
And then did a single we were featured in a magazine. So we did a single for that. So we kind of sitting on that song for a while, and then, we just kind of stock up on riffs. And it really wasn't until, what would you say when we started hammering out songs?
Like 2023.
Yeah.
2023, like early 2023 when Aaron had joined the band. We just started kind of compiling, because some of the riffs were like the main riff for Erode. I wrote that in 2022. And we just started kind of building off of I think that was like the only, maybe like one of the only
early 2023. I think we did Vile and Sadistic. We did like a little demo for ourselves, and then we started playing those live like pretty much all the way through 2023.
Yeah. And
then just hammered out the rest of them.
Yeah, that year. Because we were focused on playing. We did a tour in 2023, and we already had Sadistic and Vile Incarnate already written, and we were debuting those in 2023 at like every show we played. But yeah, as those shows in that year kind of progressed, that's when we were like in between shows, we're rehearsing the set, and then writing what is now the new album.
But it was pretty much up to like the deadline too. He wrote like the short song Impaling Sorrow pretty much like 2 weeks before we went to go record the record. So we had to get that thing hammered in pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that's a testament to just, being able to take a step back and like, there's just something about this that isn't sitting right.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because the song that we did have, it was unnamed. It was unnamed. There was just something about it that like the riffs.
It's another short one. We wanted a short banger. You know, we did the same thing on Demise, and we just wanted like a real heater, you know, for a short song. But it just wasn't it.
Yeah, it wasn't sitting right, and it was like, man, we're coming down to the wire here, and like I kind of it wasn't like pulling riffs that I had. It was just kind of like actually one of the riffs technically was adjacent to a riff that we had in what was the original Impaling Sorrow, but not technically the song. And I just kind of like revamped, I modified that riff. And then I'm like, dude, I got to come up with something because I can't write lyrics to what this is, like this early iteration of it. And I'm like, but we can't scrap it unless everybody likes it. And so I kind of came up with like a stock drum track off of like YouTube or something just to get the point across. We got together and then more or less like kind of like put the song together in like a rehearsal.
It was just like no question. It's like, all right, this is way better than that one.
Yeah, and it was like
do this one.
It definitely saved.
Start studying. You know?
Yeah, it definitely saved it. And we were like, all right, that's way better. But yeah, kind of cool how that all worked out. Thank God.
So with all the time and combing through every song, combing through every riff, and it seems like it's a very democratic process when it comes to songwriting for the band. What makes a riff? I know that's a pretty broad question to ask. What does it need as a listener, as a musician? What takes in mind to creating something that would go onto a new release, go into a new track? What makes the cut? How does it make the cut?
I feel like you just kind of feel it. You know what I mean? I know it's kind of a cliche answer, but like you feel the groove, and you can hear the drum beat in the background. I like to see like how the crowds, like if it's a speed, like, or a mossy riff, like, and just anything that's got like a groove that makes you feel something out of it. It's just like if you listen to a Cannibal riff, you're like, oh shit, gives you chills, or like gives you the stink face, anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, cause again, like we're fans of the music anyway, like, so I think it's definitely, would this be something that we'd want to listen to, like
exactly.
If I wrote a riff, would this be something that if I saw a band play or if I hear this from another band, would I just be like, that's a fucking killer riff? Like you could tell, like, I think what really goes into a riff is like creativity and like the will to explore rather than just, oh, this is heavy or this is chuggy. It's like, well, does it have character? Does it, creating the riff, does it have intention?
It's gotta have like an individual like feel to it. We'd like really strive for, like every song to kind of sound different and like no riff to really piggyback off another one,
Yeah, everything.
And it is like a very democratic approach too, because like me and him write most of the riffs, and it'll be like, I'll have a part and he'll be like, oh, this changes this to like this, and it's like, it sounds even sicker.
Yeah, nobody gets bent out of shape with it. If it's something that's definitely not felt, it's very much so. Well, why would we keep this? Like, I'm definitely not that way when it comes to. Now, granted, some of those riffs for sure are like, I really don't want to like scrap this. And then 9 times out of 10,
we all agree on it anyway.
Yeah.
So.
And if it can work, then perfect. And if it fits as far as like a section going from here to here, and invoking, kind of like, soul or like real feel emotion to the riff, and you could kind of like piggyback that off the song or insert it somewhere. It's got to make sense. It's got to be cohesive. And, like you're saying, like when it comes to our writing style, for instance, in the song Excised, out of the solo, we kind of had an idea of like, okay, let's go back to something that let's bring it full circle to like the main verse and chorus type structure. But let's not just go straight into it like that. And, because we always write in person, and we were right. This happened to be in the rehearsal studio. So this is all of us together, or it might've just been me, him, and Aaron. And Aaron is a killer guitar player, and he chimes in and he's just like, I think I've got something. And I'm just like, I give him my guitar, and like that riff out of the solo in the song Excised, that's Aaron's riff. And it worked. It was something that I'd never write. I think it's something it's totally kind of like,
never would have gone with that approach, but it fits so perfectly.
And we were just like, dude, and I'm like, all right, maybe I could put lyrics over this. It's a kind of a funky riff that I'm not used to picking and doing vocals over. And like kind of rehearsed an idea in the studio in real time. And I'm like, all right, I think this can work. And then like, I mean, that's one of the sickest riffs
And then
on
of
that
course, being the
fucking
drummer,
song.
he had a mean drum beat to go behind it. You know?
Like premeditated. He had that one in his back pocket.
Yeah, he's wicked. That
it
one
fucking worked.
That's so wild to hear. Like, I mean, he is, now he's just like, he's basically like a Swiss Army knife. Cause while this is certainly a guitar driven record, there is so much like craziness as far as like, in terms of like the drum performance on this, like some of the little like, cymbal accents or some of the shit he's doing. I mean, like, song like Strangled by Hatred is like a crazy drum track for this record. And, it sounds like it clicks. I know there's like historically with this band, it's been kind of hard to maybe, have a consistent person behind the kit, but it sounds like it has certainly worked out well for having Aaron, a guy who is a monster behind the kit and then also can pull out riffs as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
he's a killer artist too. He drew some t-shirts for us for the tour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's a Swiss Army knife for sure.
Yeah. Absolute attribute.
Back on the subject of riffs, I mean, I think Dylan and I both agree when I listen to this, it definitely evokes like a lot of what I loved about this form of music when I was getting into it, but certainly like very refreshing. It seems like very uniquely your perspective. And so, we've kind of touched on like what makes a riff, but maybe like if you could, give us some of the riffs that really struck you when you were first getting into this form of music. Was there a riff that you heard that you were like, I have to fucking play that thing? That is crazy. Like, how does that guy do that?
I remember like when I first heard Human by Death, that was probably the first like real death metal band or like album that I really got into. But that Flattening of Emotions, that gives me chills to this day, and the tone, the heaviness, the just the percussiveness of like the riffs itself, and like the bass behind it. And it was so deep, that whole record, all of Death's music, and then you just kind of go down the rabbit hole with the rest of death metal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how far you want to go back. You want to talk death metal or just riffs? Because
we could go
riffs in general.
Yeah, non-heavy. It could be anything you want, man.
Well, I'll keep it heavy, but like Fuck Like a Beast. I mean, damn it. I mean, like that's how I cut my teeth, was on hair metal and like 80s metal in general.
Man, if you had been in the room with Dylan and I at like 2 a.m. and it's like Blind in Texas comes on, it's like,
oh, let's party. Yeah, that's as far as like early riffs when I was starting to play guitar, like all riff based, because as far as like trying to play solos, just trying to learn guitar, like that was not in the cards. And like just trying to play riffs and learn by ear, like songs like that, or like Breaking the Chains by Dawkins, just like like chuggy type stuff, like real foundational type rhythm guitar playing. And then of course, you build it up and you learn Seek and Destroy, or like For Whom the Bell Tolls. It's just like nice and heavy, very straight to the point, and kind of just like, again, like, yeah, straight to the point. So, and then, you stack on, you kind of get a little bit better, and then you could learn fucking Flattening of Emotions or something way down the road. Like,
yeah, I definitely skipped ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe fucking pull the
start
plug
with some
or something.
Exodus, dude. Like when I started, it was like all thrash for me. I mean, I started, everybody does Guns N' Roses, Metallica, and then thrash. I dove heavily into thrash in high school, and Exodus, just riff kings, Estimate, stuff like that.
Yep.
Trying to learn like Piranha or something like that, or like, and then there were none. Again, those are just very good A-B, whatever, like song structures that you can grasp. Like I wasn't going to be Eddie Van Halen when I picked up a guitar, but I could like, learn the 5/7 chord, or like, oh, okay, we're sliding up a little bit, whatever. Maybe, all right, how about first records you ever bought? Could be heavy, could be non. I'd love to hear that.
So when I was a kid, I was getting into AC/DC. My dad was like an old rock and roller, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Guns, and stuff like that. But once I started getting into more metal, he bought me and my little brother. We got Black Sabbath, and Scream of Vengeance, Judas Priest, and then Paranoid. And I just remember hearing Paranoid. My dad had these big speakers, and just hearing that intro riff to Paranoid and the bass in your chest. It was like, oh my god,
yeah,
just powerful,
Dude. One of the first CDs that, like, because again, I don't know, man. Like, this is like, it's kind of a while back, but like one of the first CDs, like I got a lot of Burn CDs. I got 2 older brothers, and like I remember, and this was before I had really found what exactly I was looking for as far as music. And like I think my brother bought like he bought like a Sublime, like my parents would give us like $20 to go to the mall. Everybody split up, meet up at the fountain or some shit. And like, remember my brother bought whatever the Sublime CD with like the fucking clown in the recliner. He bought that CD to give to me on Christmas Day to basically take from me and give to himself. And so like I had like a relationship like that with music where it's just like hand me down shit, a lot of gangster rap. And like, but those are like also huge things as far as like that I still love today. But I can remember being, I was on like a family trip with a friend of mine, and we stopped somewhere on Interstate 5 going to LA. And I swear to God, we stopped at a place called Anderson's Split Pea Soup. It's kind of like a tourist trap, but it's like it's like an old Dutch type restaurant. Back in the day, they used to have like a huge gift shop with like tapes and CDs. And I didn't have any money. And I found Blizzard of Oz, and I asked if my friend's dad could buy me the CD. And so like those early like Ozzy riffs, like, or like, Randy riffs, like go home and try to learn like some of that shit. And, but yeah, like early CDs and early music stuff, like was definitely foundational. And like, even, same thing. I swear my brother burned me like the first, like System of a Down album. And like that was cool at the time, but I didn't know exactly if that's what I wanted to hear. And so it was just kind of like a mixed hodgepodge. And then discovering like Motley Crue and like Dio and Rat and stuff like that. And then that like absolutely blew the doors down. But as far as like first riffs trying to learn, I don't fucking know. Maybe Ozzy is definitely like, fucking
first riffs.
Crazy Train might have been, one of the first riffs, like try to learn.
I think the first thing I ever learned on guitar was Paint It Black.
Oh, neat. Yeah.
Oh,
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, just that little intro part.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
TNT and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but you just kind of brought it up, and I know you were just on tour. I have not personally been on tour, but I know Dylan has.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about like maybe picking up some wild shit at like truck stops or like tourist traps. Is that like a thing that you have carried maybe into your adulthood and tour life?
Commando on tour this last one.
Yeah, we did. So
Commando DVD.
the van, our van rental had a had a DVD player, and we're like, all right, it doesn't, the fucking thing doesn't come with like stock, like, oh well, this comes with these movies, so like we made a point, we stopped somewhere in like Arizona or Nevada and found fucking Commando for $1, and we're like, dude, that's all we need. Like
one of the best.
Yeah, I didn't even ask, like, was there anything else? It's just like, let's watch it again. Like, such a great movie. But I mean, dude, it's funny because like some little armpits of like states definitely have like archaic shit that they still sell that you don't find at like your major, like, I don't know,
7-Eleven in town,
Yeah, you could still find like a cap gun that has no black, has no like orange tip, and it's just like,
God,
this shit still. and then you find a fucking Randy Macho Man Savage Slim Jim holder that's actually like him. That's like, this is like an antique that's like got the Slim Jims in it, and it's like fucking Bristol, the vocalist for Molten, that's their tip jar. So he had one of these things already, and we found a different iteration of it up in either like South Oregon or something. And it was just like, buy a Slim Jim and enter to win the raffle. And he's just like, you guys send this to me if I win it, right? And it's just like, where the fuck are you gonna find that shit? Like some random, so finding weird shit is always a plus.
Tour's beautiful. I mean, speaking of movies, I don't think there's any doubt in either of our minds that you guys are certainly into horror. Like I've seen your BC Rich, with the Hellraiser. I think I've seen promo shots. I mean, you literally have a Hellraiser sample on one of the songs on the thing. Did your love for that genre of film also coincide with your love for this form of music as well? Was that kind of like coming, colliding at the same time?
Absolutely. I mean, death metal is a horror movie. So, I mean, realistically, like, and it's not from like no pun intended. It's not from like a sadistic mind, like state of mind. It's definitely like an artistic, it's just, horror movies are a great form of art one way or the other. And yeah, as far as influence is concerned, definitely it's become kind of a theme because, certain movies definitely certain movies or books like play a huge part in like certain lyrical, assistance. And I mean, I love Hellraiser. I mean, like the first two specifically. And like, yeah, that one had been in the back pocket for like years, actually. Like, I'm talking like at least 10 years ago. I remember talking to our old bass player, like, it would be sick if we wrote a song about Hellraiser. It's like, oh yeah, let's do it. And then, finally like kind of reared its head of like, well, let's do it now, like that works very well, to kind of paint that picture of like how that story is.
And the samples,
told.
I feel like they just add so much atmosphere to the song. It's such an eerie, creepy, like intro for that song in particular.
Very heavy.
A lot of records you listen to, they have those creepy samples from the horror movies.
Yeah,
it all kind of coincides.
Definitely influential.
One thing I think Dylan had mentioned in his review of the record in general, and I think if you kind of like, sometimes lyrics don't always like, stick, or maybe I don't always interpret them maybe the way they were intended to, but it seems like maybe the horrors on this record are certainly more rooted in reality. And I kind of like, Donnie, that you mentioned Death. I think that's like a really maybe good comparison where that's like a band I feel like that started definitely with your kind of like your skulls and your gore, but the stuff that was far more interesting to me, would be your Human, or the more introspective and kind of like real life is just horrific enough. So I really like feel like we both connected at least with that piece of the record as well.
We love bands like Cannibal Corpse and Deicide and all the satanic imagery and all that, but it's just really not who we are as people. And like we sit down and talk about the crazy shit that happens in the world all the time. And, it's horrific. It really is. So you don't really need to add all this blood and guts and that's more like telling a story like about the real world, and like sometimes that's enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, again, like, having a piece here or there is one thing. And that's kind of just like, okay, well, we can insert a tiny bit of this fantasy aspect. But more or less, like, I think it's much more important to highlight specific human actions in lyrics. I think it's kind of cheap to use gore. I think it's definitely like, it's got its place. But I mean, that's just not how I choose to write lyrics or structure a story of a song concept. And definitely not always having to be so straightforward, leaving it up for interpretation in a sense, even if the lyrics do seem like they are very much so rooted in a topic. I feel like I definitely make a point to structure lyrics or a story to be able to be interpreted as take it as you will. You can apply it to either this or this, even if it is this title, have it subjective, just like, art in general, conceptual art can look like this, but you can look at it however you want. And I think that's much more powerful than something that's just, I'm going to stab you in the head. Like, I think that's cheap. That's just me. Still listen to stuff like that gore, Cannibal Corpse is still a great band and everything, but
it's definitely, I know I've identified more so with things that I can, identify with, right. That I can relate to, with the things that I see in my life or that we've all been through in our lives. And, I kind of go back to maybe like the first time I heard Injustice for All, that's kind of a blending of many different subjects, but then you get Dyer's Eve at the end of the album, right? Dyer's Eve is a very personal track, whereas the rest of the album has to do with a lot of topics of greed and the earth dying and any of those subjects. And I always stick with that more so than I may like, I love Cannibal Corpse. So like I stick with like the Bleeding or Tomb of the Mutilated. It's like, oh, those are great, but I've seen August Underground. I've seen all these like terrible horror and slasher films. It's like, yeah, but Hereditary is going to stick with me a little bit longer than maybe, Cannibal Holocaust or something like that. Although fun and gruesome to watch, but that, the more subliminal things are going to stick with me a little bit more.
Absolutely.
It's deeper. It's like I was saying earlier about like feeling something. It's like when you watch these movies, like you watch Freddy Krueger and it's like, oh, it's scary and it's creepy. But like when you watch a movie, kind of like Hereditary, like you mentioned, it's like you feel that, pain and you can see it. And like with these songs and like talking about real world topics, like you see it every day and it's like, it's real, and it's like a lot of people kind of just put their blinders on and choose not to like face it or like acknowledge it. And it's like, dude, this shit's going on in real time.
Yeah. Right now, like that's us as a population of humans trying to survive, doing that to each other to make sure that they don't survive while we survive, but don't look.
On the topic of horror, I'm sure we enjoy this shit like all year long, but it is October. Are there some movies that you're gonna have to watch this month? Luke, I know you were in a band called It. Are you like watching some Stephen King? Is there, what's going on the TV? What's a must watch?
I mean, I'm still trying to see the new Alien. It's hard.
I haven't seen it. Yeah,
Me either.
It's hard. It's hard to find time to be able to go to the movie and see it. And I'm like, man, running out of time here. I keep telling my wife, because we're huge Alien fans, as far as the first, especially the first and the second movie, and this falls supposedly right in the middle of that, and that's just like, and I mean, they went back to the practical effects, and it looks like it's so tastefully done. Really trying to see the new Romulus movie.
I liked that same director's version of Evil Dead. I love the work that he did on that. But yeah, some of the behind the scenes or some of the same things that you're talking about with those practical effects, I'm like, I want to see it. I got to like turn the lights off, throw away the phone. Got to check that out for sure.
You can't beat it. I mean, our eyes, as far as like how old we are, I mean, we're not like boomers that are like getting tricked by AI shit, where it's just like, you see this fruit that's getting carved. It's like, dude, that's not real. Like the digital effects are nothing like the classics. I mean, like that's tangible, real. That's actually right there. And when it's done well, practical effects just are just incredible. So
it's more like real, like art, we can bring back, talk about realism and stuff. And like, even with like the art, like the AI generated art just feels gross to me, and like, I mean, I definitely enjoy movies that have like an ass ton of CGI, but like, you like seeing the real, like the art form of the movies and what they had to do to make it look that way, And yeah, it's like, yeah, this is kind of cheesy, but it's so sick.
Yeah.
Like the classic Evil Dead, it's such a sick movie.
Yeah. I mean, shit, I'll probably try to watch it at some point of this year, but I mean, the Tim version.
The speaking of like Stephen King, I'm a big fan of the Salem's Lot. The original Salem's Lot is like that image of that vampire just sticks with me since I was like 6 or so and saw that for the first time. I know they're about to release I guess a reboot, a remake, whatever you want to call it. It's hitting Max soon. I'm hoping to watch that. I don't have a lot of hope for it, but I'm going to end up watching it for sure.
That's another all these like, they kind of just digging up old like IPs and like, all right, here you go. I mean, there's some that are like just too good to pass up, but I don't know. Donnie, are you got any on the list that you're looking to check out?
I've been trying to see that Alien movie too, man. We just rewatched me and my girlfriend just watched the first two again, and it's so good. I love that the cinematography behind it. I've always liked the sci-fi movies too, all the alien movies. Like, you ever seen like Fire in the Sky? Like, that's one of the creepiest scenes ever.
Oh yeah, Will Lieber. Yeah, the book is even. Or no, I'm sorry, his like actual like testimonies like back then, like, very scary.
Oh, that's the actual abduction.
Yes,
killed her friends. Yeah, it's brutal.
So the movie is super good. He talks about it though as if Hollywood completely like changed everything though.
Really?
And I found that out. I was like, oh man, like he's like, that's not what happened at all. Like, but the movie is fucking scary though.
It is. It really is. Got him in the ship. And
it's not good.
Getting into his eye, dude.
It's not good,
man.
Yeah. Forget that. Yeah. Forget the actual story as far as his actual account. Watch the movie though. It's good. It's good.
Maybe shifting gears, back to this record. We definitely are big fans of the label $20 spin. Typically if there is something under their roster of bands, like it's definitely worth checking out. You kind of mentioned you had recorded a single for the magazine, and that was kind of like maybe what at least got the ball rolling. I know maybe they had already kind of affirmed that they were fans previously to that. But how did you know, like, all right, we gotta, first impressions are everything. How did you know that was like the song, like, all right, this is the one, we're going to send it, and hopefully maybe something will form as far as like a relationship?
I mean, it was just it was a good position to be in as far as when we were doing the comp, to have a new track recorded in general, to be able to just go ahead and send it over as like a demo.
So we knew that he put us on his list of 2021, like or what do you call that?
Like best non-affiliated label releases, like favorite non-affiliated.
He put us on some sort of list, and we were like, "Damn, dude, like that's pretty cool."
They were
you
like,
know?
"Dude,
like,
know that the album, like that's crazy, like that's it." Yeah. So then that was enough to affirm
the Karst reality thing. That was just kind of a separate thing. We did that solely for the comp. We'd already written that, and started jamming on that, and we're like, okay, let's do this for the comp. And then once we started talking to 20 Buck, that's when we recorded that demo of Sadistic and Vile, and then sent that in.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, this is what we're doing now, So we pretty much had those three in the bag.
Yeah. Like, here's an example of what we're working on. And then we basically just went from there.
That's awesome. And, it sounds like he just works with bands that he genuinely enjoys. Like everything that he puts out, he seems like yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
He keeps his ear to the underground. He knows where to look. And, he's put out some really great records just this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unbelievable year for sure. With that too, like I love, if I discover a label, especially like growing up as well, maybe even out in your area, like Tank Crimes was like a huge influence on me, just having that whole like catalog available on Bandcamp. Were there like any labels or even labels now that, maybe people should check out that just like have like an incredible, Rolodex of bands?
I mean, honestly, like right now, like Carbonized Records is really putting out a lot of solid shit. That's Chad's label from he's Chad from Necrot and Mortuous. Yeah. So like he's been putting out a lot of killer releases lately. Same with Dark Descent Records.
Great label.
Yeah, like Mortal Wound. I mean, I just saw today Gutless is coming out with a new I think their first full length. And yeah, like I mean those are two great ones for sure.
I mean, it's got to be like certainly very affirming to have like to be, you guys are almost like 20 years kind of existing more or less as a band, and to have like, hey, like people are still really enjoying, like this label really enjoys it. And then even to have like, if I'm not mistaken, Matt Harvey even kind of like come up to you at a show and like, hey, I want to work with you guys. Can you tell me a little bit about like how that relationship formed for this record?
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, back in the day, like in the early, like, or late 2000s, Matt's band Decapitator, we used to, like, me and my group of friends we'd go out to like all the East Bay like thrash shows, and like Decapitator was just like legitimately decapitating motherfuckers. Like anytime Decapitator was playing, it's like, you got to go to this show. I mean, like that style of like, like brutal thrash is just like right up my alley and shit. And like, seeing him play back in the day, like we kind of talked a little bit, like when I was like a 16-year-old kid, and like, so kind of known, like very like on the periphery, Matt, but not necessarily like on a talking relationship. But of course, being fans of like the majority of like, all of his projects, that's a fucking given. And then, yeah, we played down in Atascadero last year. It was last June. Last June, we went down there, and he came out to the show, and basically, we just started shooting the shit, and he was like super stoked, and we just started talking, and was just like, "You guys have any plan? What are you guys doing?" Like, we were like, "Yeah," because we kind of had like plans of like, "Yeah, we're gonna go into the studio in like a couple of months." Kind of had like something loosely planned, kind of like how we were gonna do it, like the last record, and like, we're going to be doing this with 20 Buck Spin. And he more or less was just like, dude, I'd love to do your guys' record. Like, if you guys want to work together, I got a studio. And like, we had already known because our friends in Cartilage had done their record with him. So like, we knew that he was like doing shit. And same thing with like the horror album that Exhumed did in 2020, I think. Like we kind of knew that there was something going on, that basically he had a resume. We weren't just going into like, hey, I want to try getting into recording an album. And we're like, well, we're going to do an album.
He knew what he was doing.
Exactly.
He had credibility.
Yeah. And like, that was really sick. And we were just like, all right, well, let's cancel what we already had planned, because this is way more legit. And yeah, it worked out very well. I mean,
it sounds fantastic. And you know, maybe maybe I'm incorrect, but it seems like maybe previous to this record, you know, it seems like you maybe worked with people that you knew or like you were friends with. I know Donnie, maybe Hunter, who was in some of your other projects that you were involved in, recorded the previous record. So like, you know, going from that kind of world into maybe someone who obviously you look up to, like what sorts of things did you learn from the first record into the sophomore record? Are there things that you might want to like delve further into perhaps on a future release? Like what sort of things were coming to mind in that regard?
I prefer to never do it the way we did it the first time ever again. I love Hunter, and you know, and it was a fun process, but it was very grueling and just long, you know. And I feel like the best part of doing it with Matt is we went up there for 6 days and just banged the whole thing out in 6 days. And you know, the last time we did it, and it worked, and it was like great for what we had, but it took months, you know, of coming back and forth and just
like a solid month.
It was
a solid month to track. And then granted, this was
back and forth.
This was 2020. So this was during COVID. So it was very much so like, all right, let's find these blocks of time to be able to do this. But
see, it felt long.
It was
a long time. It felt like a long time. Just a lot of, you know, just work and just, it was, you know, it's when you're doing it with your friends, it's a lot more loose and less, you know, you're kind of messing around with Matt. It was just like, and Matt's one of the coolest dudes out there. He's one of the coolest guys in the game. And so it was very fun the whole time, but it was very also like just business
oriented.
And we got it all handled, you know, and good time. And it, you know, it was, I'd love to work with Matt again. You know, it was fun. It was a great time. And he had good pointers. He had good tips and like on tone, on, you know, suggestions with like my solos and stuff like that. He just had a good ear for where to go with a lot of stuff. And so, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Just a totally like polarized experience, you know. It was just for what it was prior. We did it out of necessity, and so, you know, fast forward to this new album, preferably work like this, you know, under those circumstances of being extremely prepared and being able to come into an environment. And no slight to Hunter at all. Like, Hunter's a good friend.
Yeah, great guy.
Like, we love the dude. He absolutely killed it. But again, like not necessarily like that side of things, but just under the circumstances that we were under, you know, like being able to just go with a plan of this day to this day. We've got everything lined out. This is what we're looking for. Because with Demise, like we were kind of just, I mean, we're somewhat at fault too for kind of being like with what we were working with to just do it like that, you know, of like, okay, let's do it like this. Time is not really on we didn't really have a timeline. We weren't pressed, but we also laid this timeline for the new album out ourselves. Those were boundaries that we set. So like it, again, just kind of different circumstances, but definitely prefer to do it like this as far as a professional get in, execute, get it out.
On the production side of it too, it definitely seems like Matt got a really organic performance from everybody as well. It seems like it just sounds like a really, really tight live band straight on record. You know,
that was the idea. Yeah.
Perfect.
So
perfect.
Cut you off.
No, you're good. Like that's as soon as I heard the record, I went, yeah, this sounds just it sounds like a machine, but it doesn't sound overproduced. It doesn't sound polished. It doesn't sound, you know, all the negative things that we like about, all the negative things we don't like about modern production. Like it sounds just great. It sounds very real, I guess is the only way I could put it. And it seems like he got the best performances out of everybody. And, you know, working with somebody that has the tenure that he does, as well as like, God, I've been paying attention to his blog for years, talking about songwriting and what it takes. It's like the guy knows his shit, and it's very evident with his production as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, and that was the idea. I mean, it was definitely, it's always intentional as far as like whatever Laceration's doing when we're recording. It's like, this has got to be able to sound like the best live, like as if live performances, you're just perfect, you know, but that's never the case. There's always something going to happen. We're all humans. But in order to be able to lay that down in a studio, it'd be like, well, like, yeah, you know, like not going to like totally, we're going to play the riffs as tight as we can, but to have the overall production not be totally quantized and not be totally overproduced and gated, like that's the idea, that's the intention. And like, you know, with his production and Greg's mixing and mastering, the result was very much
we got
so.
more than what we were looking for. You know,
Yeah.
like it
good way to
exceeded
put
our expectations for sure.
Yeah.
The mix alone, like I'm glad you mentioned Greg because he's done some great records just this year alone.
Oh, yeah.
But his mix, his master on the record is tremendous. Everything is heard. I can hear I can hear two separate guitar tones. I can hear the bass very prevalently throughout the record. The drums are cutting without, being overblown or anything. Cause we've all heard those, we've all heard triggered records that the bass drum is just like eating everything else. Right. And it sounds tremendous. Everything just sounds really well. You guys hit it out of the park with not only the songs, but the production, the mix and mastering on this. You guys got a really good record.
Hell yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Luke, I like that you were kind of mentioning some of maybe your show going days in like California at the time. Right now, I can definitely say that California is like insane for extreme music, like hardcore. I mean, some of the records that have come out this year, like from Zapontli, Swamp Beast, Teeth. I wonder, like, obviously, I'm sure you guys have been integrated in this scene for a long time. What was it like coming up through your local scene? What maybe has changed now? Like, can you maybe touch on some of the differences and where the scene is at currently?
Sure. Well, so when I was younger, I mean, it's funny because Laceration was a band, long before I was ever. I joined in 2018, but back in 2006, I didn't get into the scene really until like 2010. But I had started a band about 2011, 2012, and we would open for them, and they were like the older guys, and we're like, Laceration, all stoked. But and like Fog of War, it was more like Bay Area at that time, like where we're at in Santa Rosa, it wasn't as strong as it is now.
Yeah.
You had bands like Hatchet and Fog of War and stuff like that, and like they would play with all the time in the city, and it's definitely grown a lot, and like I feel like a couple years later, then like black metal was really like prevalent in like Oakland, the Bay Area, and now it's more neck rock came in and kind of just like took over with death metal, and like now the scene not only in Santa Rosa but just in the Bay Area in general is just very tight and growing still.
Yeah, and I think around like that time frame too, 2010, 2011, at least up here in the North Bay, like there was not a scene prior to that because Laceration couldn't even play up here. Like our first however many shows were up here playing for like our small group of friends, but like that era of just like metal, it's not like it is now. Like there's so much more accessibility, and back then it was still pretty jaded, and also people liked what people liked, and those specific things happened to more than likely most of the time be kind of like mainstream stuff. So they're not going to just come to a show. They're not going to just like stumble upon something. And also the odds of seeing a flyer on MySpace back then was just way different than it is now, where again, like, you don't really have the accessibility or like it's at your fingertips like that. And back, so we would play a lot of shows in San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, and also Los Angeles back then. But I remember it was about 2011 where we played a show up here, and it was all of like younger kids that were like, dressing like us, like old school shirts, like kind of got the whole aesthetic down to the culture of like thrash and like just metal in general. And it's just like, I remember thinking about it being like, where the fuck did these guys come from? And it was like more than like, it was mostly like all of this dude's crew. And like we had played a show with, was it Trestlance?
Trestlance, yeah.
Yeah. So it was with Trestlance at the Phoenix. And I just remember kind of being all of us were kind of just blown away of like, dude, there's kids like pitting, like this was not even like happening, and like legit headbanging, legitimately stoked. And this scene, because again, it's really weird. Like, scenes really do come and go, and groups that, come together and support these things also come and go. And like there was something kind of happening around that time with the younger than my generation, only a couple of years, but like we kind of saw that a certain shift kind of happening up here. And I mean, that was, 15 years ago and whenever.
With Santa Rosa too, I feel like the way it's such a humble, and it's grown a lot in the past 10 years, just in the Bay Area as a whole. But for the scene though, like when we started out, when I was 15 years old, like it was just like 15 of my friends in a little hole in the wall shithole with a little stage in the corner, you know, and like, and it just started like that, like promoting our own shows and inviting our friends, and it's kind of expanded out, you know, and then we started getting attention. Like they were like, oh yeah, because I think me and Zane put on that show, and we got Hatchet and Fog of War, and they were kind of big dogs compared to us at the time. Yeah. And so and then just ever since then, it got big enough to where like some other promoters came into the area and like kind of just catapulted it even further. And now it's kind of a spot in a lot of people's maps when you're coming through California.
Yeah. The North Bay over the last couple of years, like, is absolutely on the map, and Santa Rosa is especially, you know, for like all sorts of different touring packages have started to come through, and it's because there's a very good scene and, you know, diehard metalheads. And like, again, these things happen, they happen organically, and this one absolutely happened organically, but we're happy to be here, happy to be a part of it and keep it going, you know. And because, I mean, we come out to all the shows pretty much like when it comes to a sick band coming through Santa Rosa, and it's like, that's what it's all about. You have to support your scene or else you're going to kill your scene. And like,
even if you're tired, and this goes out to everybody watching, if you're tired, you got to work in the morning, if a sick band's coming through, go fucking buy a ticket, go buy their shirt, go buy their CD, or else it's not gonna, you know, you want to keep this shit alive, keep it rolling, you know. And that's what, you know, we're all in this together, you know. Yep. And that's a cool thing about California, which I've really seen, especially in the Bay Area. It's very communal, and like there's a lot of support. There's no drama really. There's no like beef between bands. It's, you know, like I said, very communal.
Yeah,
that's awesome. You know, I definitely want to, you know, share this show again at the Phoenix Theater, October 18th, with the, you know, the ghouls from Creepsylvania. You got Haggis as well as False Flag. You know, definitely Ghoul. Maybe some friends. I don't know. Some friends of Exhumed, perhaps. You know, definitely some connections there. I love that band. I've been itching to see them forever. I'm sure you've probably caught them before, maybe even played with them before.
No, this is our first time.
Really? Okay, cool.
Oh, cool.
No, we've seen them. I mean, collectively more than enough.
Yeah,
yeah, they rule. I mean, this is going to be a sick show. Nonetheless, it's right around the corner from us, so yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Perfect. You know, before we kind of like wind things down here, you know, with the record being out, you toured a little bit as well. You got this show coming up. Is there anything that you hope to accomplish with, you know, the remainder of this year, or maybe looking ahead to 2025, or just Laceration in the future for many years to come? What do you hope to accomplish, whether in this band or just in life in general? I'd love to know.
Yeah, I mean, keep playing. Like, we're looking to do all sorts of shit. We're looking to get out. We're looking to play other areas and just keep it going. You know, we want to do this. We want to tour this album, and we want to do it right. We want to spread around, and like, that's the goal. You know, we got some things lined up for 2025. Yeah, I mean, that's
very excited for 2025. I feel like, you know, like this year we spent a lot of time working on the record, and, you know, it was, and then a lot of waiting, you know, and then like sitting here now, the record's out, and we've played a lot of sick shows since then. The tour was great. This next show is going to be really killer. I don't know if anything's coming up for the rest of the year. You know, it's kind of like that time of the year where it kind of slows down, family stuff. But next year we're going to kick it off strong, and we hope to do some really cool shit next year.
Yeah, we definitely want to spread Erode as much as we can. You know, we hope to do quite a bit with this album, and that's the intent.
We like to kind of end the show with like maybe some recommendations of things we've been listening to. I don't know if like, or is there stuff in the back of your mind that you might have to just like share with people or whoever? We'll like link it below and stuff like that.
Go check out the new Vile Rites record, Senescence.
Yep.
Killer. Aaron, same drummer, just an incredible record.
Yeah.
They're our good friends, some of our best friends, man. Like, an incredible record.
Yeah, one of the best in the last decade, easily. If you're sleeping on Vile Rites,
if you like progressive death metal and like anything like Opeth or Gorguts, like, dude, check that shit out.
Very good. Yeah.
That Blood Incantation their new record's gonna be killer.
Oh my god. That first half that we got with that short film. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's good.
That's all I needed.
It's
good.
Little like death metal, little Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Death metal, Pink Floyd. Who'd have thought?
Damn. It works.
The new Engulfed record, they're from Turkey. Sovereign. The new Hulder record is really sick. More Wound.
For sure.
Karst from LA. That record kills.
New Teeth too.
Yeah, the new Teeth album is extremely, extremely mean. damn it, you're putting me on the spot. I gotta like, dude, the new Skeletal Remains album is killer too. I know it's like we're kind of like at the end of the year, so it's like this has kind of been a crazy year. I mean,
we got to give it up to Black Dahlia Murder too. I don't know if you guys checked that one.
Servitude is great.
Yeah,
an amazing album, dude. Especially following the tragedy that happened to that band, like they really showed up for that one.
Yeah,
there's a lot of this whole year has just been incredible. For
it's hard to keep up.
Civerous killed it with their record.
Yeah,
you know, our boys Molten, they got a killer record.
Yeah,
you know, check them out. A lot of cool shit.
Wormwitch.
Yeah.
Oh,
Dylan
man.
just did a review of that record. Yeah.
That's a great album.
Mayhemic from Chile.
Yeah,
absolutely devastatingly brutal thrash. Like Caffeine listens to fucking Mayhemic. I swear to God, like that is some sick shit. Chile is just like they're doing something seriously good.
I only got one this week. This is a fairly new band from New Orleans called SLOWHOLE. They have a song that's called I'm Going to Kill You Until You Die. It's very experimental and kind of noisy doom metal. This is like the first single from an upcoming LP. It was shared by our good friends in Thou from New Orleans as well, who they're going to be on a West Coast tour with. So check it out. It's in the link below. Dylan, you've been listening to anything?
Yeah, I went a little old school with it, at least old school for me. You know, it's Halloween, so like I got to dig into black metal records. But I went back to one of my favorites, which is Behemoth's The Apostasy from 2007. That one kind of gets overlooked a little bit because you had Evangelion, which came out right after it. And then the band went on to do what it's doing now. But The Apostasy had like Promatherion and At the Left Hand of God. This is kind of back when Behemoth was still scary. This is right after like the Demigod record and everything. So yeah, it was just fun to go back and re-listen to this thing and just hear those fucking drums just right in my face.
Fuck
nice.
Yeah. I got one more. Erode. It is out now. $20 spin. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. Don't be a chump. Get the record. If this band is coming through a town New Year in the future, I would highly recommend seeing them. Luke, Donnie, thank you guys so much for joining us this week. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
You can follow us at Riff Worship Pod, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We'll be back next week with something else for Luke, Donnie, Dylan, myself. See ya. Bye.